welcome to day 7 of projectDig. Finishing up the week, the first week of projectDig. That's exciting. Hopefully we'll make some good progress today. I hope so. Doing kind of an earlier stream since I have family plans later today. So we're going to be picking up where we left off yesterday afternoon, exploring the whole render system, rendering and spatial partitioning and all that fun stuff. Trying to figure out really just how it should work. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. So we did get some cool stuff happening yesterday. I can show that. Just run this here. We got it. So we have a little slime pudding bouncing around. Whee! It's beautiful, I know. So that's something. To start. I'll just keep bouncing around. So we need to start figuring out how we want to handle this better. Wait for it to hit the corner. Yeah, I mentioned that yesterday. I think it might be a while. So I was trying to figure out how are we going to handle this in the ideal final scenario where we have thousands of entities that need to be rendered, and I haven't figured it out yet, so we're going to think about it on stream here and hopefully come up with this solution, or at least something that we could start working on. It doesn't necessarily have to be the final solution. Of course, we can come back to it in the future. There's a number of things that we have going on here. I think I actually wrote it out. This is kind of how we want to render entities. Now we first want to cull the entities that are off screen. Then we want to order the entities by the layer, some Z ordering. And then finally we want to render the entities. And so I was thinking about this quite a bit yesterday and doing a lot of studying, reading. Hey, Jin Dingo, welcome. And there's some insightful posts that I found scattered throughout the interwebs. I actually made this. I don't know if it's... Oh, it is in here. I guess it just automatically got added. So yeah, you can get to this if you want. I think it's public access based on design. Yeah. Copy page link. So, I mean, there's only 2 links here so far. Maybe I'll add more later. But these were insightful. Basically, what my takeaway from like all of the reading I did is that I really don't need to shoehorn everything into data-oriented design, which I've read in the past and makes complete sense. It's just like a good reminder. Oops, that was supposed to be viewport. And yeah, there's like some other thoughts about like data-oriented design, and also like I don't have to try to put everything in the ECS, and so it's like we can use a mixture of like approaches to come up with the solutions for these problems. So one of the challenges we have right now is that we need to do this series of steps while rendering. Like first call the entities, then order them, and then render them. And what we might want to do is to start with the most basic solution and see how that works out. So have our like render system that literally does these 3 steps. We iterate over all of the entities. We then call the entities that are on screen, which means that we could copy them over to a list. And I think I was kind of doing that here. Yeah. And I was saying, oh, we could have a like this concept of layers where it's like a vector of layers that we're adding the entities into. Another possibility is that we just have some like Z ordering, so it would be we need some sorting. We actually could maybe do a sort. I don't know how fast that is. I mean, maybe it would be best to do a sort while I don't know if there's any like solutions immediately available to us. Maybe we would have to implement something sort while we are putting it onto here. Like it'd be preferable to keep this in order. I guess if there's STD, maybe we would start with that, is just do STD sort, right? So we could, another solution is to have a sort. I don't know how that works actually. On a vector, if we provide it, so we can provide it some lambda, I guess is what we would want to do. That just says like, hey, look at, oh, that actually is kind of lame. We'd want, in this case, we'd actually want to be looking at the render component information as well. What I'm trying to do is like keep it nicely packed and as efficient as possible. But first pass, we probably shouldn't worry about performance that much. But yeah, it would be useful to be able to sort it based off of the Z. I guess the transform could contain that. That's true. Maybe the transform, I guess we're doing that here. So if our transform contained the layer, which could just be, I mean, if we wanted to, we could make it as small as possible. We could make a uint 8, and that would probably be fine. Like, do we really need 256 different layers? Not really. Like, what we, in Korea, I probably have like a dozen, 2 dozen at most different layers in the game. And so we can sort it that way. One of the challenges with this and where this might not really work out so well. I guess we could do it that way. Yeah, that would work. I was thinking we want to be able to render other things at different layers. So we might have like some fixed Z. So let's say that we want to render some entities at 45 or 22. That's going to, you know, I'm thinking the smaller the layer, the further back it is. So it's coming forward. And we might want to say at 30, that's where we have our ground tile layer. So anything rendered at or like above 30 would be in front of the ground layer, and anything behind it would be, anything lower than it would be behind the ground layer. And what we could just do is, I don't know exactly. I guess if we're iterating through them, that kind of sucks. I guess what we would want to do is probably, I actually did this for the other game where we have, for Korea, where we have something like for it sucks to have an if statement in here. I'm not sure of the better way to do it, but basically, you know, iterate through all of the entity transform stuff. Let's just say this is the entity transform, which contains the entity, the position, and also not a vector, just like a uint8 layer. And so this would be layers. Maybe it would just be entities, whatever, or renderables. And then in here, we would have if the transform layer is greater than or equal to some amount. I guess what we could do is, if we really wanted to, have it be in a single loop, which might be best, is we could have this idea of like renderables or something, and this could be maybe this is a possibility. The current index for that. So we would just have like a, I guess in this case it would be type renderable index, and then we could say, hey, is this greater than or equal to the renderable index, the previous one? I think this would work. And if it is, then we can get that one and actually, like, you know, do the callback or whatever. You know, call render on it or something. Oh, and we would need to then increment the renderable index. This is assuming that, so maybe we would have to like make sure that index is less than the renderable's size. Maybe something like that. I don't know if this would be the best way to do that. But it's a possibility. And then we would be able to, you know, at this point, we would have culled and ordered it. So we'd have our layers, you know, maybe instead of our layers, would just add it. And then in here we would, I should probably just uncomment all of this. And it's silly to keep doing that. We would sort it. Oh, whoops. Sort layers. Begin. Layers. End. And then have some lambda in here. I don't know exactly how that works. I haven't really used lambdas. Oh, wait, here we go. So in this case, it would be I would say I don't know if we can do it like that. Pass in a lambda like that by const ref. That'd be preferable. So that way it's not copying these. And then we'd be able to just say layer. Dot layer. I might have that flipped around. Maybe it needs to be that way. I don't know if that's ascending or not. What's the comparison function object, which returns true if the first argument is less than ordered before. Okay, so that makes sense. So we would want it to be less than, right? A is less than B. Yeah. So something like that would or should work. And this would be where we actually render it. And it might make sense to then do like transform entity ECS get render component whatever, something like that. Passing in the transform entity, and then we could actually render it using the same stuff that we do here, where it's this, we have our render. The icon texture, this would be component.texture. Destination would be probably component destination. Oh wait, no, we would have to create the destination based off of the yeah, so there's a few problems with this actually, which I'll touch upon, and maybe we can come up with better ways to do it. It's some things that I didn't really consider for Creo that we should really consider here. I have, yeah. Render spatial partition. What was I looking for? I guess I was thinking we could do something like this almost. Where we need to set up I don't know. Destination. And then also we need, so this probably would actually be based off of the transform component. So maybe it would be like destination.x is equal to transform. I don't know why. I guess we need to base this off of the x and y, huh? So maybe destination, maybe it makes more sense to just do it like this. And not have this up here, but to say this is the transform position dot x, y, and then we'd have the component. Typically, I think we want it to be the same scale, so we would say this is like the component width. Maybe we'd have it be size dot x. I don't know what would make more sense here. Size dot y. And then, so that's the source destination. Or sorry, the destination rect. Just to make that more readable. And then source would be, I think that would actually be coming from, that's essentially the texture rect, the source. So that's the frame within the texture. Maybe it's just null if it's the entire thing, or maybe we want to trim it down so it's not the entire thing. So one thing that we should really think about is batching. There's so many things, like, I actually kind of missed out a step here. Which is 3, or like 2.5, which is, yeah, I'll just actually say 3, and this is 4. Batch entity, or batch entities by texture. So that's another thing we could do to optimize this, is that, hey, if we have, you know, these 20 items that are being rendered just in different locations, then we could optimize that by just rendering them a bunch. I don't know if SDL has any sort of batching. We should look at that. SDL batch rendering. Which version are we on? Does batching automatically happen? Sounds like it's, let me go to, I should follow this dude. SDL2. The SDL. What's the current version that's out? It is 2.9. Where is the changelog? I feel like I'm missing it somewhere. Changelog. Not quite what I was looking for. Aha, added a new sensor API. Add an event. I don't see any mention of the batching here. That's too bad. Maybe it didn't make it in. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have to. Oh, maybe it was up there. No, that's just a download link. We don't have to worry about this to start with, but it's something that we could keep in mind in the future is batching, which is essentially like, hey, let's try to render all of these things that are using the same texture at the same time. So that way we don't have to have the GPU trying to load up all these different textures where, like, it has some amount of memory and I honestly don't know that much about GPUs, but my understanding is that it loads these textures up into memory and I imagine it has multiple levels of memory, just like your CPU and motherboard and everything. And so it loads it up into the fastest. It's available right then. Memory super fast, and it renders it to the renderer that you're copying it to. And then we load up other textures. And if we're like doing a bunch like A, B, C, D, going through the alphabet, and then we're like, oh, and also we have another A here and another B there and whatever, then it's not going to be, as performant as if you are just saying, hey, let's render all of the A's first. If we have like 20 like wood icons on the screen, then we can render all of those. And if we have 40 iron ore icons, then we can render those. And maybe one thing we could do is even consider just doing something like batching for layers. It's a bandwidth speed issue. Oh, let me take a look at that. Hey, nobody's lemons, thanks. SDL GPU. Okay, cool. Oh, so this is separate from SDL image, and it has some overlap, it sounds like. High performance, it automatically collects and submits batches instead of separate draw calls for each sprite, and redundant state changes. That's cool. Shader API, arbitrary geometry rendering triangles. Hey, Wanted, what's up? Okay, so yeah, we might want to consider using this. This has actually been linked in the past. I hadn't really looked at it much. But yeah, maybe this would be good. Need to look at This all help out. Cool. Yeah, maybe we could use this. Yeah, I saw that automatic batching. That is cool. For sure. I don't know where I should make like somewhere else. Just like a list of things to consider. Maybe I should just put that there for now. Because I probably will end up using this. It sounds like it makes sense. But one thing I was saying, like at first we probably don't really care about it. You know, we're not rendering a ton of stuff, but later on we probably will care about it. But one thing I was saying is that let's say that we have a layer that's dedicated to rendering items, like item icons, items that are dropped onto the screen. Sorry, into the world. We could put all of those into a texture. And then we could just, since we're ordering them by layer, that means that we automatically get that batching for free, really. It's like we would say, okay, render all of the icons, you know, on this layer, and hey, all the icons are in the same texture, so hey, now it's really fast. They're like automatically batched. And that's going to happen with some other things as well, like players. You know, if we have all the player or a lot of the player graphics in the same textures, then that means that they are going to just be batched and it'll be faster. I don't know exactly. Like, I think you can also do batching as far as like, you know, with OpenGL calls where you say, hey, render all of these. Well, I don't know, like in SFML, they had this thing called a vertex array, and so you could draw like quads, well, you could specify the vertex array type, and so you could say, oh yeah, these are vertices that are quads, and this is the texture associated with them, and I want to draw, you know, 500 of them or whatever, and you know, in these different locations, these are all the vertices, and it would just, you know, it would use the same texture, and so it would be very fast. Yeah. So that's definitely like the fastest approach you can do. OpenGL doesn't have any abstraction like SFML for batching. Yeah. Right. I mean, with the vertex array, it's like it's not really doing much for you. Like, all it does is it has all those vertices that you can, like, you know, I'm pretty sure the vertex array is just making, you know, this call to OpenGL. It's not like doing a ton of complex stuff, but I don't really know for sure because I didn't dig into that. Yeah, I would prefer to avoid doing a ton of OpenGL stuff. I don't know how much I'm going to have to do. Maybe this will provide some of that for us. We could look at that. Modules, classes. Doesn't look like they have much in here, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, we might have to learn some OpenGL. Oh no. Oh no. Learning OpenGL sucks. Yeah. I've messed with it some in the past. But I think for Korea, I ended up just getting rid of everything and opting to use, like, I was for a while doing OpenGL stuff. Let me see if I still have that in my lighting. So this is for Korea's stuff. Yeah, I ended up rewriting it, but for a long time, I did have a ton of OpenGL stuff in my lighting code, but then I ended up just like rewriting it and using the vertex array. I'm pretty sure I have a vertex array in here. Yeah, the vertices. I just push vertices onto, or vertex onto this vertices list, and whenever I render it, I guess for this one I render just the color, and then I put that through a shader. For like the tile layer, I also use that vertex array, but yeah, this is like pretty complex code. But somewhere here, whenever I draw it, I have the states, right? States, yeah, and the vertex array has the texture associated with it, and so you can just draw a vertex array with the texture set, and it draws all those rectangles for us. It's nice. It is nice for sure. It probably isn't that hard to do, but it sounds not fun still. Yeah, so this is kind of what I'm thinking for our render system. Right there. I don't know about shaders yet. I don't know how we want to handle that. Maybe we would put the shader information with the renderable. That might make more sense than splitting it up. Because we have our layers here, so that kind of stinks to have it be split. Yeah, maybe we'll go ahead and make a render system that can do some of this stuff. Play around with it. This needs to go into include. Okay, so what I might actually do, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll leave it like that. So we'll have a new thing, we'll call it render, a new component. Call this render component. Let's for now say that we're going to put a layer on here. Maybe this needs to just be the Z. Like we could say that it's a vec2. I don't know. We actually probably, this is actually more efficient, I would say. Because we only need a uint8 for it, so it's nicely packed. We don't need a ton of data. So this is going to be a render. And this will have a SDL texture pointer. So we're going to need at some point some texture or really just like a resource cache or something, resource loader. Where it will load up our textures and we can just like, you know, say, hey, give me this texture, give me this icon or whatever. Hey, Mind Rage, what's up? It's not gonna have a position. It's more of going to have an SDL rect, which is, I don't know if we should call it source or rect, texture rect. That's what I called it. Texture rect. That's what I called it before. One thing I should do, and I really need to move this somewhere else, is I just want to call this a rect, not an SDL rect, and say using rect equals SDL rect. Just rect, that's okay, right? Yeah. The reason I like that is then if I ever want to change my rectangle class or something, I can. I don't know. Maybe it's bad practice to do that. Maybe it just makes it more complicated. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Like I would probably do the same with like the texture. Probably most of the types. So that way, let's say that I decide I want to have some texture that wraps the XDL texture. I could do that, like some class that has, like a struct that has the SDL texture pointer as well as maybe the originating file or I don't know what else. Perhaps the width and height, so we don't have to do a query on it. We could just do like, hey, texture.width, texture.height, and we don't have to look that up every single time because that's something, maybe that's something that we want to use a lot, and so we want it to be readily available. Some other things I could see in here, shader, some shader stuff, maybe color, if we want to change the color of the sprite. I don't even know how to do that. I imagine that's possible. Oh yeah, orientation would be another one, right? Or maybe that belongs in the transform. Actually, that probably belongs in the transform, to be honest. Because we might say, let's say you turn around or something, then the orientation should handle that. Like, and that would be in the like, you shouldn't be getting the render information off of that. Yeah, that makes more sense. It's all blidding stuff. Oh, clear color, no. Use this function to get the additional color value, multiply it into render copy operations. I see. So you can change the blend mode, the color mode, or mod, and the alpha mod. Oh, so one thing here I just realized with this whole system is that right here is that we're assuming that all transforms have a render, which isn't necessarily true, right? Why is this so complicated? So maybe we would have to do a query on both. Render component. Render. And then maybe it does make more sense to put the render, the layer on the render component. Since I would say that's something that, yeah, I would say that makes more sense. It's really the render specific, and we would prefer to keep our transform component as small as possible. And that's not something we'd be changing very often. Like, not a lot of systems are wanting to touch the layer, but a lot of systems want to touch the transform. So I could see that. I think that makes sense. This does kind of suck though, because then that means that we're not necessarily iterating over these in contiguously. This is where doing that, like grouping that ENTT would be useful, because we want to iterate over all of the renders. Like, we care about all of the render stuff. But like the transform is kind of secondary. I don't have any way to specify that right now. Yeah, I mean, hey Chaz, what's up? I'm doing pretty good, doing good. Working on a new game called Dig. You can check it out there. This is what we are doing today. Is just like mostly render system stuff. Making a new game engine. Yeah, so maybe it makes more sense to almost... I don't know, maybe I can just leave it like this for now, and we'll see if it's a problem. That's probably what I should just do. We have our viewport. Yeah, so we only want the render stuff. That makes sense. Yeah, I was looking at, oh yeah, so there's the color. What's the blend modes? I'm curious. None, blend, add, mod. Oh, okay, yeah. So like, you know, there's potentially we would want that stuff as well. I don't know for sure. There's the alpha, the blend mode. So the alpha, like we could say, so there's color. I guess, wait, does SDL, what does that take? The color mod, does that have a color? No, it's this RGB. So we could, maybe we would have a color class or something. I don't know where this should go. This might be in like a util class. Util. I don't know. Where should I put this? I don't know where I want to put this yet. It could just go in a color header. Maybe it makes sense to just put in here. Really, it's this uint 8 types RGB. Hey. Oh, right. I need to include C and RG. Oops. GBA, and that's pretty much it for now, which is why I'm like, maybe we want to do something else with that. We'll see. But anyways, so we could say, hey, this is a color, so that includes the alpha. So that's really just a uint 32. Perhaps we could do that if we really wanted to. What we could do is make it so that color can be converted between a uint 32 and a actual color. Oh, sorry, yeah. So if we ever want to say, oh, this is a uint 32, we can. I don't know where we would want to do that, I guess. Hey Chaz, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm streaming every day, so you're of course welcome to join anytime. I'm also putting the VODs up on YouTube, so you can check them out there. I need to make some Nightbot commands for that. So yeah, I don't know about the shader stuff, and we're probably not going to know or even like look into that for a while. So we'll worry about that in the future. Okay, so we have our color. So this is kind of what I'm thinking we want our render component to look like. Maybe we need to organize this better. Rect. It seems okay. Texture pointer. Our rect is uint 32s, right? It's an int. Okay. Seems a little unnecessary. I might end up changing that. Like, do we really need that much? Like, for a texture rect, a uint 16 honestly is plenty of space. We're never going to have anything larger than, you know, we're never going to have a texture that's size is greater than a 65K. The only thing that sucks about that is then we are having to convert it over, which isn't that great. Anytime that we want to, use an STL rect, we have to say, oh, well, this is a Unit 16 rect, so change it. Are you using STL render temporarily, or is that what you plan on shipping this game with? As opposed to what, using like this STL GPU thing? I am just starting to explore this side of things. It's fun to hang out and see the behind the scenes, but I got a busy day. Yeah, no problem. I understand. It's Easter. Have a good one. Take care. OpenGL would be the best. Yeah, I mean, I will probably end up having to do some OpenGL stuff, but I'd prefer to keep that stuff. Anything that I do have to do low level, like, kind of encapsulated and off to the side in the back. You will run into limitations insanely fast with STL render. Oh yeah, like what? I'm new to STL, so I'm definitely interested what those limitations are. Before this, I used SFML, which was a pretty nice wrapper around OpenGL, and I ended up eventually I was able to remove all OpenGL code from my game and just use SFML. STL renderer doesn't support custom shaders. Shader interface. Yeah, I was looking at this. It's quite slow when rendering a lot of sprites, difficulty handling shaders. What do you guys think of this STL GPU? Have you heard of it, or? I know there's this other Haley engine. I don't know exactly what they have done. Source plugins. I think they have SDL. Sounds like maybe they have their own stuff. Yeah, I haven't looked into it much, to be honest. Looks like they have, so this is specifically for OpenGL. I wonder what they did for SDL. Or maybe that's what they did, is that it looks like maybe they just used OpenGL. Well, to be honest, that's it's kind of disappointing that SDL is such a thin wrapper around OpenGL. It's like not even really that. All it does is help. I guess it sounds like all it really does is help you like set up a GL context and whatnot for your platforms. I don't know what people typically use it for. It's a way to interface with OpenGL and provide multimedia options. Yeah, I guess I was thinking it was more like SFML and that it's like a, full wrapper and you don't have to interface with OpenGL whatsoever. That's what I was hoping, because I really don't want to deal with OpenGL. I don't know OpenGL very well, and I don't really care to. That's like a little lower level than I care. Just use SFML. SDL renderer works on almost every platform, so it's basically a lowest common denominator. Yeah, that makes sense, Paul6. Just use SFML. This SDL GPU looks decent. Like, it adds a lot of the functionality that is missing. I'm not saying that it's what we want to use for sure. Yeah, like, I noticed that I couldn't do shaders. SDL. Let's just see what other people say or do, or like. I don't know. What do I want to look for, really? It's kind of like the SDL GPU. Interested to see what this. It seems like it's really good. Wonder. Looks like he hasn't worked on it much. this year, but hey, J Cummins, what's up? Yeah, this seems pretty good. Maybe we could use this. The problem is like, if I use this, I guess I would have to still worry about other, like if I was porting the game. Yeah. I'm probably going to have to rewrite a bunch of it. I guess that's future me's problem, right? Fun stuff. Okay, yeah. I was just thinking, like, should I use SFML? Would it be worth it? Would it actually be faster or better? Yeah. I mean, I like a lot of what SDL is doing. You're going to use this library for the rendering system? I'm considering it. I'm looking at it. So it adds some basic functionality that I'm absolutely going to need, like shaders, that SDL itself does not provide. SDL's other stuff is super nice and complete, yeah. Yeah, it does look nice. I like the SDL, like, I am used to object-oriented programming, and so SFML does seem, it was, especially in the past, very familiar and, like, comfortable for me to work with. And I wanted to try something different here, which is why I was using SDL, and also it's just more commonly used. The one thing that sucks is that, yeah, the GPU stuff is kind of, or like rendering is very lackluster and incomplete, and I do really want to avoid having to write OpenGL code a bunch, because I feel like that's it. Yeah, like I said, it's just not a huge interest of mine, and I feel like I could probably spend a lot of time trying to learn OpenGL and making it, actually sufficient for this game. Fortunately, I would only need to learn 2D stuff. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. I don't know. Maybe it's not so bad. Because I wouldn't have to learn all of the 3D stuff. But still, yeah, maybe I'll just try this SDL GPU and see how it goes. This is 3 years old. Right, JChemist. Setting up a batch sprite render in OpenGL takes maybe 200 to 300 lines of code if you're just doing 2D. Yeah, maybe it's not so bad. It's 200 to 300 lines, but I don't really know what I'm doing. But yeah, you might be right that it's not so bad if I'm just doing 2D stuff. Maybe one of the implementations can be based on SDL render, and the shader operations can be no-op, so you can get going quickly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for now, I probably just wouldn't even do shader stuff. Like, it wouldn't really support it. Yeah, maybe the SDL stuff, I mean, the OpenGL stuff wouldn't be so bad if we're only doing 2D. I guess the biggest thing is that I'm wary of getting lost and like making a game engine and not actually making a game. And I think there's like a fine line to walk there. Hey G-Man, what's up? Hey Tibby, doing my own game engine. SDL is quite low level. Yeah, it honestly seems not much lower level than SFML, except for like specifically the rendering. If you look at the API, like a lot of it is the same. Like the event handling is almost the exact same as SFML. The audio is actually very low level. That is true. The audio is very low level, but I'm planning on using Fmod anyway, so I don't think I would be using SFML audio stuff. Interestingly, they actually have file system support where SFML doesn't. Hey Tim, thank you for the raid. Thank you. Welcome everyone from Tim's channel. And his turtles. Hey, welcome everyone. Yes, I am working on a new game engine using SDL and a handful of other engine or libraries. Fmod, Spine, Rackneck, etc. I haven't even really gotten into those. It's called projectDig. And yeah, we're looking at the rendering for SDL and just kind of talking about that. So Loud is a sound library I found. How old are you? Old enough to be your dad. No, your grandpa? No, I'm 33. $20 or $22? Jeez, I don't think so. I've been married for 10 years. I have a 2-year-old. Not quite that young. You flatter me. And I just came. I worked on Korea for 7 years. Man, how awesome would have that been if I made Korea? Oh, I started Korea when I was 13. I mean, it does look like it was made by a 13-year-old, right? I was surprised by all the stuff that got added to SFML. Which stuff? I haven't looked at SFML for a while. Do they have that 2.51? Okay, yeah, it's not too much newer. Okay, yeah. Go back and past and remake Korea. I wish. Okay, the audio networking, etc. Yeah, I didn't use the networking. I found that to not good enough. It's okay. They try to do a lot of stuff, and yeah. Basically, I wanted some reliability on top of UDP, and they don't provide anything like that, which is why I use RackNet. I use Unity engine. Do I continue, or do you know a better one? Unity's fine. You can look at Godot if you're interested. But Unity seems fine. Like, you can use that. I think reliability on top of UDP is missing the point. Well, it's optional reliability. That's the idea. So you're trying to capture the best of both worlds. And there are other ways you can go about doing it. Like, you could technically have two connections, one TCP and one UDP, and everything that you want reliability, you do TCP, and everything that you don't really care about, you could do UDP. But that's still like there's some with like RackNet you can get in between, where you're like, okay, I want some reliability here, but not a ton. Yeah. Apparently, mixing UDP and TCP sockets increases the packet loss rate for UDP. Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. So yeah, I use RackNet, and they have all that reliability built on top. So you can say, hey, this thing is like completely unreliable, or maybe it's like, I'm forgetting what it's called, like ordered something, where it's like unreliable ordered. So if you get a newer version, then you just throw away the old one and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not a network guru, so I can't I can't speak to like the exact performance on those, but it worked well enough for me that I made the game, or I made Korea, and it didn't. It was pretty. It was performant. There are some problems sometimes, but it's mostly because of client prediction is not great. Like, my client prediction is basically non-existent. Well, kind of. I have the physics simulating on the client, but I do, I forget what it's called. Basically reconciling the server and client is basically, I just set it to set the client to whatever the server says it's supposed to be, instead of doing some like tweening or something to help the client get back to the point where the server says it should be. But besides that, it's good. Interpolation, yeah, like, yeah, basically where it doesn't. I guess it's some type of interpolation. You probably want different ones based off of different things, but basically, yeah, like the idea is that if this this monster is moving along and then it stops on the server, it takes a moment for us to figure out, hey, it stopped at this point, and I don't handle it really that well. Typically what you should really be doing is like kind of rewinding the state or something and say like, hey, actually this monster's over here, or at least for the player input. Maybe for like monster logic, you can just say, hey, they're actually over in this location, and that's okay. For like player, you might need to rewind the physics and resimulate them at least, so that way, like if they stopped, the input took the full RTT plus whatever, like 2 input states to or so to be able to go to the server and then come back, and so if you are moving and then you stop moving, something might have happened, and yeah, it's complicated. There's actually a good talk about it that I linked the other day, that Overwatch talk on YouTube. Here we go. That's kind of what I was talking about there. So someone asked, and Neomax, you asked, how did you market Korea? What did you eat for those 7 years? I had savings, and the game was like in beta and early access. So the game was like slowly bringing in money during development, and then also released after 4 years to a 1.0, and I continued working on it. So for the majority of the time, the majority of its development, it was on sale in some fashion. Beta, alpha, whatever, early access. I did a Kickstarter, and also I had my own savings and whatnot. Yeah, so I think what we'll start with is maybe use this STL GPU stuff and just go from there, I guess. I don't know. Probably need to build it. I'm guessing he doesn't have it like compiled. Yeah. He says it will be, but I might just mess with this later, to be honest. I think we can get away with using the STL render for now, and worry about adding this stuff in later. A Chemistio, you ask, should I start with doing existing game engine or using my own engine? It really depends on your goals. If you're wanting to make a game, then you should definitely use an existing game engine like Unity or Godot or Unreal Engine, whatever. Where you might just want to focus on programming and not using a game engine whatsoever, if or something. I don't know like how early in programming you are, like how early in that stage of learning. But I would definitely not recommend learning programming while you're also trying to make a game engine. Game engines are complex enough as it is. Yeah, Gaffron Games has a great blog, and I based a lot of Kriya's netcode stuff off of that. Yeah, it's one of the few like good sources online, or at least it was 7 years ago. I haven't looked too much in recent years, like in the last 3 years or so. It's open source stuff on GitHub now. Oh, cool. Yeah, so we can worry about the SDL GPU stuff later. We can just like get started with something for now. Render system. So we will want to try to like abstract this as much as possible. Or at least keep it as like self-contained as possible. Like, I think that... Doesn't this have... He has his own SDL texture, right? Query texture... Where's the... Okay, I already had it open. My bad. I have like multiples of the same thing open. Yeah, isn't it like GPU image is basically the texture, right? Copy image from surface. Oh, it looks like it has a bunch of information. Let's see. Yeah, so if we ever want to, let's do like rendering, render copy. Clear the target, not the target. Split rotate, split scale, split transform. Okay, maybe that's not what I'm looking for after all. Thought it was. Maybe I should go back to this. Render copy. Okay, he calls it GPU blit. Got it. Yeah, which takes the image, the source rect, and the target. Yeah, not null, not void. That's pretty much what I would say as well. It really depends on your goals and what you want to do. If you just want to make a game engine, I would recommend first learning programming, and then you can learn how to make a game engine. If you want to learn how to make a game, I'd first recommend you learning programming basics, you know, making sure you understand for loops, while loops, conditional statements, you know, all of that stuff. And then you could start using something like Unity to develop a game. Okay, so yeah, this would just be a GPU image. So what I'm thinking is that in the future, if we use this SDL GPU library, we would have this texture pointer just be, instead of an SDL texture, it would be a SDL image. Destination, X position, Y position. Oh, interesting. Source rect target. Oh, so it doesn't support. Oh, I see. Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, that's kind of nice. Yeah, that's actually. I mean, maybe that's just a convenience or something. Because yeah, most of the time we're just going to want to do this. We're not caring about scaling it. So yeah, and here, like I was saying, oh, we have to like copy over the size of that. But in this case, if we're using that, the SDL GPU stuff, then we would be able to just say, oh, actually, let's pass this in here. Like that. And it looks like that would need to be the pointer, but yeah. Sorry. Dang it. I hate that so much. Sorry, Kyle. Here, let me repost what Kyle put. Wow, that's so dumb. I totally just blocked Kyle's post. I tried to click it and then like the chat resized or did something and I moved it up a tiny bit, and so instead of clicking the link, it deleted the message. Like I guess I misclicked, but I think I moved it. Try to click the link, deleted the message instead. I'll check out that link later. It's looks fairly dense. My bad. I just don't like you, Kyle. That's just the truth of it. No. Okay, so maybe we could do something like this. It's all going to be happening here inside of the render system. So for now, what I might do for the render system is legit just make a space called render. And because I want this to be like stateless, and that's just called like update, or I don't even know if it makes sense to do. I don't know what I want to do for this. It might just be for render. What I might want to do is I may want to make this be a class. I guess I probably want this to be a class actually, and have it handle this stuff, right? Just so I can store. Is there a way to like get the window pointer after it's been created, or? Yeah, maybe I will just do this. Figuring out how I want to set this stuff up. Everything is so different from what I did before. Like I'm having to relearn how to code a game engine. It kind of sucks. It's actually a little disappointing and concerning, I guess. I thought that I would be able to go faster development-wise if I made my own game engine, but since I am trying to do things so differently this time around, I'm just having to relearn everything. So this is interesting. I guess what I should do is, yeah, we could have a render system. What we might actually want to do is have just like an init function, and then we can have a destructor for our render system, which can handle the destruction of things. Actually, I might do that. So then in here we can just we can include our render system. Mr. Pound Sign, welcome back. 34 months. That is a long time, man. That's a lot of siege victories, lots of hearts. Happy Easter to you and your family. Hey, thanks, man. Likewise. I hope you're having a good one. Yeah, I'll be doing family stuff later today, like 4 hours or so. Ripperoni, I know, Kyle. Yes, just working on this new game engine. It was fine. Oh, good. Just waking up, nice. Sounds nice. So we want something like this. That's true. We need our render, huh? Create texture from surface. I guess I'll need to be able to get the render somehow. I don't really want to expose that much, though. I wonder what I need to do for that. Huh. I'm not sure how those are going to be connected yet, since we need our renderer here. Technically we don't need to do this anymore, because what I'm going to do, whoops, not here, is just have the destructor handle that stuff for us. Stop. What's going on? Actually, I want to say if it's valid. I guess I don't really need to do that since we're calling the destructor. I think I need to destroy the render before I destroy the window. Might be wrong on that, but... And we might need to... And so this is one thing I'm not sure about yet, is... yeah, in the... I'm not really going to want to do that in future. This is IO stream. We're actually going to need to add in our logging soon, like some logging class or something. Just when you think you're the king in town, someone else shows up, right? When you're like, oh, okay, never mind. This guy's much cooler than I am. 34 months. Okay, so yeah. We're going to need to get our render somehow. So we don't need to do this anymore. What we'll want to do is get our render system. And yeah, really what I need to do, create. I guess for now what I can do, I don't think I want to do this in the long run, but I could say, oh, well, let's have our texture. And this is, I really need to make like a util class. Maybe util header. I'll do that now. I don't know if it's util. Maybe I'll call it what I did in Korea, which is types. Which is just like a bunch of types. So that way, like this won't change much. So I'll want that, right? Just do that. So then in here we could say include types. Do the same here. Say, okay, we want to return a texture. And we can say create texture. Oh, this, yeah, I don't know if I like that. I don't know the best way to create a like nice interface to kind of abstract all of this. Really what I want to do, I guess what I want to do is be able to load, whenever I'm creating a new component, I would like to be able to just say, hey, give me the texture, period, and it would get it from the texture cache. I do it for the hair swoop. Makes sense. Yesterday someone said that my hair looks like plastic. And then my father-in-law suggested that I get some like filter or shader or whatever that actually makes my hair look like plastic. Somewhat tempted. STL window. Oh, that's the problem. Oops. Yeah, I don't like this. I need to get the render though for whenever I'm creating that. I'm not sure of the best way to do that. Create texture. Yeah, we'll end up moving this code a lot. This is fine for right now. This is not preferable for several reasons, but we'll change it. One thing we could do to help a little bit, I guess, is where's game? Is this? Oh, and I should free the surface here. And I can just use query texture. Yeah, we can do that later. So this is a texture. Actually, this can just return it. This is mrender. That's okay. This needs to just be include STL image. Get that. So we could for now just say, oh yeah, let's pass in a string to load this. This is the path. So then what we can do is render, create texture, pass in the path. I need to add that. And so that return, oh whoops. I guess we can't do it quite like that. Texture, pointer, texture. Return the texture to this point. So obviously caching this would be much preferable so we don't load the image every single time. We could just cache the texture, so hey, if we already have it loaded, then great. You know, so the path would correspond to the texture, and then we could make it even smarter to like hash the path or something. Hey Hogan Long, yes. Yeah, we are using custom game engine. Okay, that should work. So we're gonna need to change this. This needs to include types, right? Oh, I see what the real problem is. Yeah, and we need system. This can be STL query texture. I guess what we could do is this. We could just default it to 0, right? For now. Format, what did I have it? Format. And null pointer field and with raw format. I don't know what that needs to be. I don't know. Maybe it would make more sense to start using this STL GPU stuff now. There it is. Ah, that's it. Okay, well that's easy to use. Oh, you can just say null. Oh, these are the formats. Wait. What am I looking at then? Oh, sorry, access. I see. So it looks like you can just say null. Why does this stuff matter? Okay, well for now we can, it looks like we can just do null. Oh, you're right. That is populated. You're right. And if you pass in null, that means we don't care. Okay, that makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense. So we could just say this is the icon destination width, icon destination height. We need to provide that pointer to it. So that works. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so that's like slightly. Let me actually move all of this code. Over here to render system. Yeah. Oh snap, I think I messed that up. Yep, I hate that. So one thing I really don't like is that if you do Control delete to delete a line, it copies the line that you are deleting, which I really don't like because it's not what I'm intending to do whatsoever. No, I just want to do that. Okay, and we'll need to pass in the ECS. Do we want it to be, I don't know. I don't know what we want right now. I guess it could just be reference. I don't know if that makes sense or if it makes more sense to say it's a pointer. Wouldn't it be better to just say it's a reference, right? Yeah, that's something I still need to read more about. Anyways, I was just moving this here for right now. I guess one nice thing. Actually, I think I'm just gonna say it's a pointer for now. And we can just say class ECS for declare it. Spent all yesterday on my UMod Discord bot. Nice. Are you using Go for that? Right? Maybe create texture could return a unique pointer. A unique pointer to the texture. No, because I want it to be shared. I want that pointer. I want the texture to be used in a lot of places. So it's not actual ownership. So I guess that's kind of wrong. This really should, this is kind of misleading. What this really should eventually be called is get texture. which will load it if it needs to. And so we really should have like some concept of a cache and everything. And I was saying I'll change that in the future. Right now it actually creates the texture. In the future it should only create it if it needs to. And preferably we would just like figure out, like, oh, here's all the textures we are going to need for, this level. Well, right now, that it would just load everything. Probably. It'd load like all of the game textures. Most likely. Maybe it would pack some stuff up. So at runtime, or like whenever you are launching the game, maybe at first it would load up just the stuff it needs to load up for the main menu, and whenever you try to start a world, load up a world or a save file or whatever, it, in the loading phase, it just goes through and loads up all the textures that you will need. Why ECS pointer? I'm not sure yet. I mean, maybe we could just pass in a ref. Well, either case, we're going to eventually need to in here say we're using the ECS. Probably that. And we're going to be doing that in here and using some other things. Someone will have to call delete. Yes. That would be like probably the asset loader would, or not, the asset cache or resource cache, whatever you want to call it. That would be the thing that would decide when it doesn't need textures anymore and unload them. Most likely it would just be when the game is shutting down. Since I don't have this concept of like levels, it kind of makes it actually simplifies things quite a bit for me, where I just want to load up pretty much all of the data and have it in memory the entire time you're playing. And then whenever you close down, I just unload everything. Because yeah, we're not like going to new levels and like, oh, in this level we have this background and this thing and that. We could, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm still figuring a lot of this stuff out, honestly. I think we're kind of just like sketching things, and then we'll figure out how maybe we'll leave this in here. I don't know. Maybe this should be with rendering. Probably makes sense to put it in the rendering. Render.render. Provide the ECS. We don't have an ECS. We can make one. ECS. ECS. Yeah, it should be fine like that. I wasn't sure if I had any constructors or anything. Here we might be able to get away with just that. Let me throw this down here. This should actually happen at the very top. First thing we do is clear. Oh, I guess for now I can add this in here since we're tracking all of this. in here. Makes it a little easier. Yeah, again, I don't really know what we're wanting to do with that stuff yet. Maybe we want to just vsync it. Well, I'm pretty sure the ownership is for textures, and any asset is going to be within the asset cache. So I don't know if I'm going to call them assets, maybe resources. Maybe that makes more sense. So we'll have like and maybe we'll create some templated resource cache that's like, oh yeah, this holds textures, and or maybe we'll make them specialized, and so it focuses on loading textures. You know, finding the image, loading it up, and then storing it so we can have some quick lookup to access it rather than having to reload it every single time, because obviously that's not a good idea. This will actually be more of in here. Will you embed Chromium? No. I have done that. I did that with Kriya. I do not like. I am going to be using my own UI solution. Are you using Windows 10? Yes. I am. So yeah, for now we can just have our render system be the asset cache or reload, yeah, whatever. We can say like one really cheap way to do this is just to make an unordered map of string to texture pointer call this textures. So I don't want to keep this in here forever, obviously, but for now, this is fine. So we could just do something like this. If textures, yeah, textures, wait. I think I need to add that in here. If the count of path is greater than 0, I can just say count, right? Yeah. Then actually, maybe what we'll do is this. Actually, I take that back. That works. Oops. Yeah, so we should make sure that the icon surface was created. If it's not, then we have some serious problems here. This is where we do a fail. You know, one possible solution is that we use some invalid image to like indicate that the image did not load properly. We're like, oh, default to, you know, a giant red X or something like that. Or we could just crash, something like that, or, you know, like assert. That's honestly, I think that's what I'm going to do here. we'll do it like that. Just assert that it's valid for the time being. Start V is a clipboard history you can enable. Might help with some control D issue. Oh, you know what? You're right. Is that I think also. How did? There it goes. Yeah, if I do Control Shift V, I have that option as well from my clipboard. Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, I really should use that more often. Whoops. That's pretty nice. Yeah, I really should use that. I completely forget about it. I think that's a feature of Visual Assist. I might be wrong. Maybe it's a feature of Visual Studio. I don't know what the other one looks like. I'll try it some other time. I guess I could try now. I guess I don't have it enabled. Okay, so now we have some super crappy thing here. And what we could do is iterate over for... oh, wait, actually, that's right. We can use auto. Path, texture. And our textures. We want to do, is there like a destroy texture or, yeah, there we go. Pass in the texture. Perfect. I think I'm going to not have that. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so destroy all the textures, destroy all the renders, destroy all the windows, or destroy the render window. So now, for now, our render system is the resource cache for textures. In the future, we probably want to change that. Yeah, that's true, Mr. Valentine. Keeping it in the IDE. Okay, so we got that. That's cool. So what we're working towards is being able to just render with our ECS. So that means that we need to add in some stuff for that. What I'll probably do, and the reason I'm doing this, like splitting it up here, is so that way it's easier for me to just delete in the future. We'll just populate. Wait, what did we decide on? I think it's like this. All right, ECS. And that's where we are going to. Oh, I need the render. I'll just pass that in as well, I suppose, for now. Don't know of the best way to do that in the future, but yeah, we have our render component. One thing I need to add in is in the ECS right now. We have to manually do this. In the future, it would be good to have this like be done automatically somehow or something. But we have our render component. We need to make a render pool, component pool. And we're going to actually say that one of the groups we care about is a render transform component and render component. Yeah, I see this being a problem in the future. like forgetting to do one of these or something, and then it causing lots of issues. So I definitely need to come up with a way to do that. Like, I guess one thing I could do, and maybe, I don't know if this happens right now, like, is just assert that whenever we try to use an entity group, that entity group exists. Maybe also have an assertion that we are creating a pool for all of our component types or something like that. Not entirely sure yet. One thing I'm kind of thinking about eventually doing is making this like concept of a world, and the world contains the ECS, and maybe the worlds will kind of change what components we would care about, maybe. So like for the main menu world, or I guess maybe we could call that a scene. Each scene would have its own ECS. Maybe that would make the most sense. And so then our main menu scene might not have all of the components that, or our ECS in the menu scene would not have all of the component pools created that we would in the main world scene. I don't know. It's just something I'm kind of like thinking about right now. Okay, so what we want to do, I guess actually what we really want to do is create a prefab. Maybe we'll do that. Let's do that. So maybe we won't do that stuff. Let's create a prefab stash. In the future, we probably don't really need. I mean, we would want a prefab stash, but like right now, I technically don't need one. Create. That returns the prefab pointer. I don't really know if we need to return a pointer here, right? Couldn't we just return the prefab itself? Yeah, we might. I don't know if we really need a pointer here. Prefab. Oh, the ID set, that's right. We would just say, do I have a way to get a prefab ID? I guess we could do that. We're just like throwing in a bunch of stuff here. How do I do this again? Reserve. Right. So I would be pushing back a new prefab component. Okay, we'll do it like this. Well, let's do transform. I wonder if I should. Can I do that? Okay, here's a good question. Can I do this? Oh wait, it's going to be a component ID transform. And, oh, I guess I should say transform component ID. And then, whatever, like this would be 2020. Yeah, okay, that doesn't really work. Yeah, it doesn't know how to convert that. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that would work. Because we have this union for the data. I was like wondering if I could just do this. I guess I need some like constructor, right? I was trying to avoid a constructor. Do you gain anything from not creating component pools? I guess saving memory space. I don't know. It's something that I'm just like considering. I don't know. I'm not going to put effort into that right now. Is it Unreal Engine? No, this is my own custom game engine. I'm probably going to need to go AFK here in a few to say goodbye to the in-laws. They were visiting and leaving soon. Okay, but anyways, yeah, we'll just do this. Whatever. So that's our transform component, and we can specify here. I know I can do this and just say this is 2050, and that works. Really, we're going to make it be 0, 0. Wait, that doesn't work. Oh, sorry. Right, I need to say data transform, and then set it. Oh, but I changed transform, huh? Forgot. No, I didn't. Oh, yes. Okay, forgetting things. Transform position. There we go. That's what I was going for. Haha. I did it. I guess actually, technically, I don't really need to do this. Since I imagine it's already set up. It should be... I guess we're not clearing it, huh? If I do that, then I can just say transform. We'll probably have to change it though in the future. So this is going to be the render. This one's going to contain more info. Oh, I need to... That's right, I do need to go into here and say that this now has a render component. Render. Can't I avoid the data and just say render.render? No? Oh, it's because it's named. That's my problem. Maybe I should remove that. If it's anonymous, then that means that, like, if it doesn't have a name, then I can just do render.render, right? That might be better. So for now, what we'll do is just set this to texture. This is where we need the render system already set up. Render init. Whoops. Aha. Conflict. Okay. So that's a start. So now we can query texture. Get the icon destination. I guess we want to do something like that in here, right? Destination. Yeah, for now we need that. Or we can do it whenever we call render system render in here. I forget what I'm storing in render component. Oh, it's a rect. So I guess it makes sense to do it this way. Which is 0, 0. Oh, actually, interesting. It's already zeroed out, so I guess what we could just do is pass that in like that, huh? Yeah, that gets populated. So that's how we can set that up for now. Direction. Yeah, we'll get rid of that logic. What we'll maybe consider doing is making like a system that moves this, kind of like a physics system that just has a bounce around. It's not really physics, but play around with that. Okay, so we need a layer as well. Maybe we won't set the layer. Leave that at 0. Yeah, we'll play around with this. There's a few things we could do, like I will want to test out that layering solution here in a bit, but one thing at a time. Okay, so we have all that. Wait, did I get that right? Okay, yeah, we have our prefab set up, right? We need to call prefab stash finalize, pass in our prefab. So this is something that I'm going to end up making kind of be just like automated. I might try to come up with a better interface for this. It'll be automated based off of like a Lua file or something like that. So there'd be functions that would be called to set this stuff up. So we have our ECS. I need to call initialize prefabs, pass in our prefab stash. probably should pass that in as a reference rather than pointer. This is probably going to end up breaking stuff in here. Right. Create prefab stash. Yeah. There we go. Fix that. Okay. So going back to this, not that, this. So we have our prefab stash set up. So then we can create a new instance. So what I was thinking of doing to start with is, let's just say ECS create, and maybe for now we'll just put this up here so we can say prefab, create prefab. Yes. Let's oh, I want to do ECS get the transform component and set the position equal to, let's do 30, 30. Just so it's somewhere on the screen. And then the most basic thing that we can do for this, forget about all of this more complicated stuff. We just want to do a query. Say iterate through all of the transform render components, and we want to do pretty much this render copy. So we have our render texture, our render texture rect. Oh, this actually needs to change. That's right. That's our destination, is our source rect. Yeah, so this needs to change right here. Because this is going to be the transform, right? Transform. And then for now, we can just use the render texture rect width and the render. Wait, why is this confused? Height. This should work. Oh, whoops, my bad. No, it won't work. So yeah, once the there we go. Can I just do this? Does that work? Can I just say, oh wait, no, I guess I do need to have it be a source like this for now. Yeah. Okay, sure, that works. Okay, so that should just render all of the entities that are on screen, right? Let's, so there should just be one. Let's see if it compiles first of all. Looks like I'm missing something here. Is it calling this code? Should be. It looks like it's trying to render. Oh wait. Our render component is not set. Why is that? Did I forget to add that in? I don't know why that's not working. Okay, so we have an issue here. This does not seem to be set up properly or something. Oh, it seems like it's... Oh, our window has not been initialized properly? Hold up. No, it says that that's being created properly. Wait, what? So our window and render have been destroyed at this point, but we never called into this, right? I mean, I don't see why we would. We haven't exited that scope, it's still valid. Why is our render invalid? Oh, whoops. I am silly. I copy pasted code. My bad, my bad, my bad. It's because we're not actually setting it. That is why. That's why you really need to look at code that you copy paste. And move balls, thanks. Yeah, that's probably the problem. Hey, there we go. 30-30, awesome. So now what we can do really quick is one more fun little thing here, which is to say, let's anytime that we get a event type STL mouse button down, and the event, I don't know what these are. Mouse button event. Okay, that's what we want. The index, sure. We'll say if the index is equal to 0, which is, I'm guessing, left mouse click. We'll see. Then what we can do is set this at event button dot x. Right. Or wait, what's type? Oh, down or up. Oh, whoops. I think I messed that up. I'll fix that in a moment. I think I actually need to say that this is going to be, this is close, but not quite. STL mouse event. Hold up. Oh, maybe that is right. Okay, take it back. Maybe that is right. So that means that if this is right, it doesn't seem like it's working. Was this? Dang. Okay, I got something wrong here. It's not finding the event properly. I don't know what it is. We'll look it up. Clicks. Padding. State. Pressed or released. Maybe we'll say released. Oh wait, I don't know. I don't know how this actually really works. Let's look at mouse events. Here we go. I've not messed with this before. What we're looking for is, here we go, mouse motion, button down, get mouse state. Oh. I see, so maybe I needed to be doing that. I'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that somewhat abrupt AFK. I had issued a warning earlier that I was going to need to go say goodbye to the in-laws, and when I was summoned, they weren't actually quite leaving yet, so I was kind of in limbo for a bit, and then while waiting, I decided just to eat some lunch, and so I had a quick lunch. You monster, I know. I don't know how I sleep at night knowing what I am. And yeah, so I had some awesome leftovers. I showed the recipe on stream the other day, and I modified it some. I made this last night, and it was amazing. It actually looks like this. Actually, well, it looks pretty close to this, except that I add peanuts to it, which I think is awesome, and I made it be an orange sauce, which is also quite tasty, and yeah, it's very good. Quite possibly one of my favorite recipes now. Tasty, tasty. And so I was eating that leftovers. Yum, yum, yum. Bloody is trying to get a free copy of the game. I love journals, so is anything. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's good. It's good. And I like the way that the tofu is cooked in it. Okay, so what we're trying to do right before I left is get it so that I think I might want to do this. I could actually do is say, well, we have our position here. I can have our transform component. And then we can do this, but we need to say transform.position.y and transform position.x. Oops. And that should set the transform position. But I still think that this might be wrong. Let's see here. Up, down. Maybe this will work. I don't know. I think that this is wrong. Something about this is wrong. Maybe I should just say any button. Maybe that's the problem. Hey, there we go. So let's actually, I'm curious, maybe, what did I have wrong here? Button was 1, not 0, so maybe that was my problem. We actually have the X and Y, it looks like. Oh, it looks like that's not setting it properly. Interesting. Get mouse state. And it's kind of hard to tell what that is supposed to be. But it looks like that's not working. Maybe we need to go back. Let's do this. Ooh, go back. And we can just say this is 1, and maybe that will work for us. Yes, puddings for everyone. All right, there we go. That's what I was trying to do. So this is actually creating new entities here. And so it's iterating through all those and rendering them every single frame. Sweet. Cool. So maybe what we could do, make this a little bit more complicated, is let's go get another icon and have two different types. What do we want the other icon to be? Maybe a door. Looks like you were creating a copy. Oh, you know what? I think I was. You're right. But this actually works out for us. But I think you're right. So if we wanted to fix that, what we would want to do, I was creating a copy. You're right. Sorry. I forgot. Yeah. That was actually like the exact thing I was worried about while I was talking about the design for this and making it return a reference instead of a pointer. Is that if it returns a pointer, then it's going to complain if we just have this. But if it returns a reference, then we can just make a copy of it, which is never our intention, which maybe is a good argument to make it be a pointer rather than a reference. Because we never want to say, oh yeah, I want to create the transfer. I don't know, maybe actually we will eventually want to do that. But if we did, then we could always use a copy constructor or like some, yeah, I don't know. Anyways. So to fix this, we would say SDL, what was that, mouse, query mouse, or wait, what was it? Get mouse state. Still learning this. Get mouse state. And this is where we want the transform position X and Y. Okay, so that should work, yeah. That was my bad. So anyways, coming back to this, let's say that we want to do a door. We're going to put the door. Oh, you know what? One thing that's nice is that I can just say it references this in here, and sure, we'll leave this as the door icon. I don't know what the right mouse button is, so maybe what I'll do is actually like check that. And here, at some point, maybe I'll do this, prefab. When all I really care about is to do this. You know, I could, I suppose, just do it like this, huh? Heck, I could even move it in a little bit more. Say, hey, if we do that, then use prefab or use door prefab. Maybe we should rename prefab to be pudding prefab. I don't know, whatever. And then the door prefab, which we need to set up. So door prefab would be pretty much exactly the same. Maybe actually I'll do it like this. The only difference is that we're going to call it door icon instead. And let's see here. That seems good. We create it, we can change which one we want based off of that. Let's try this so we can have two different ones. Wait, did someone say pointer? Use reference. Oh, wait. Huh. Hello. That's kind of nice. That's with the SDL assert. Must have forgotten to do something. I should have looked at that more, I guess. Yeah, I did get this flipped around where the door's first. No, wait, no, I didn't. Putting... Oh, that's my bad, my bad, my bad. I totally messed that up. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so now what I want to try doing is right now it just does it in the order that we render them, right? So, or sorry, that they get added. I'd like to add in some concept of layer. So what we can do is on, I think I ended up putting on the render component. You can say render data, render layer set to, let's say that the door is 1, which means that it should always be in front of the puddings. And then we can add in that logic here. Actually, this ends up like changing a lot of stuff. If I wanted to do all of this, like culling, might as well do that. Entity position layer. Does it make sense? I think so. Maybe I should also copy over the other stuff though. One thing we could do that could maybe be smart is allocate our entity transform. So this actually is going to be flattened out. And allocate our entity transform or whatever. Maybe we want to call it like render data. That's probably a better solution for this. Heck, if we really wanted to, we could, at this point, store a pointer to the render component. Just do that. Then we could sort it. I mean, maybe what we would want to do is just do this, transform component. Transform. I don't know if this is for sure what we would want, but maybe. Where's the render component stored? It's in the ECS. But we're doing this right now all within the, like, it's all of the components are stored within the entity component system. So we have pools for every single component, and they're stored in there. Is it a deck, a list, a vector? It's a vector. So what we can do is iterate through them, like what we're doing here. And this is where, like, one opportunity I was saying earlier is that we could, and maybe we would want to come up with a better solution for this, is iterate linearly through the render components, since we know all render components are going to have a transform component, and that would optimize this some. It's in a vector, and the components are compacted to be contiguous. That's right. But we can worry about optimizations like that later. Optimize that stuff later. Yeah. So what we can do is have our vector render data. What we can do is populate this. I guess we're going to, yeah, I was originally saying, oh, we have this area, but since we have, we could actually, now that I think about it, we're going to be calculating the source. Maybe it would be best to do that up here. We could do this. So we're just copying over this data. So that way, whenever we'll copy it over, we'll sort it, and then we'll iterate it. We're only using it once, but iterating over it will be very fast once we get that all set up. You store the render component right in the render data. That's just a very temporary thing. The render data is not... it's yeah, and maybe it would make sense to like copy over the individual stuff into this, I don't know, instead of the pointer. But the render data is not owning this or anything like that. It's just something that I'm right now creating within the scope. This data vector will end up being destroyed, you know, at the end. So there's no ownership or anything like that. And that's where, yeah. So maybe we won't use these directly. Maybe we'll do something else. Like maybe for the, instead of having a transform pointer, it makes more sense to just put the position in here. Probably. Unless we're going to have a lot more stuff in the transform component, like if we wanted to put orientation or whatever, then maybe it might not make as much sense. But this is something that we can add in right now, and then we can play around with, you know, profile. You know, let's render 5,000 of this thing and actually see what the results are. Yeah. So in order to profile something, you need to actually have something existing, right? Like, until we have implemented something, it's just all theoretical. Like, oh yeah, this might be faster than this, and it's just like a guessing game. But anyways, so what I'm thinking that we could do is we can create this render component or render data. Oh wait, first I guess. Oh, that's true. Well, we can do that. Yeah, we can do a rect source. Or like area, whatever. Bounds. And what this would be is the transform position, whoops, X, and the transform, why are you doing that? Position Y, and then the render, you know, it probably makes sense to actually put the layer out of here. Yeah. So that way we're not having to like request the data within the render component, right? I don't know exactly how stuff like that works yet. Like, preferably, wouldn't this just be like an SOA or something like that? Or SOA structured, so that way all of the layers are first. Because while we're sorting, that's all we care about is the layer. We don't care about any of the other information. Can I just define the struct in here? Does that work? I never do stuff like that. Can I? I guess I could do that. Sure, I'm okay with that. To say, oh, let's define the render data locally. Sure. So I was going to get the texture width, texture rect width, and height. So that's our source. And then we can do this SDL intersect rect. Pass in the, oh, we need the viewport. That's right. We don't really, right now our viewport, I'll put that in, but our viewport is not really defined right now. I haven't really investigated how to do that with this, so, oh, I don't want intersect, huh? I just want has intersection. Yes, there we go. That's what we want. We don't care how much it's intersecting. We just want to say, okay, well, if they do have an overlap, then we can place this. I don't know how to do that with the struct. How do you do that? It's supposed to be the arguments that you are passing in, right? Yeah, but what if you have a plain old data structure? Okay. Okay, I'm not completely following this yet. So my understanding is that in place, maybe I need to go back to this. In place back, constructs the object. Interesting. It's the answer, but it's -7. That's the first time I've ever seen that happen. So I could do this. Hey Kevin, welcome. What's up? So I guess really if I wanted to be able to use in place, I just have to create a constructor. I was kind of seeing if I would be able to get around that, but it seems like the answer is no. It's not that big of a deal. All it is just these 5 things, right? Maybe pushback does copy. Yeah, I guess I could do a move operator, right? I mean, maybe that would be okay. Yeah, maybe that makes sense. Wait, what am I doing? Vector pushback. Well, move won't help you with the pod. I see. Pushback just calls and pushback of the object itself. Yeah, it sounds like that's what you're saying here. The implicitly defined copy and move constructor for a non-union class X performs a member-wise copy move of its bases and members. Is that right? For non-union class. I don't know what non-union class really means. Whatever. Why are you doing that? Oh, whoops, it's right there, duh. Render source. And layer is render layer. Is this not right? I thought I saw, oh, whoops, that's definitely not right. So the viewport is just the entire screen for now. Oh, that's the oh yeah. Okay, that should work. Okay, so that should add them all. And then we can do, so that does this. Then we can do this. It should be pretty much good to go. We're calling this render data now. This is data. So that should all be good. We just say, hey, if A is less than B, yeah. And then lastly, what we want to do, renderable index. Yeah, maybe we'll do that stuff later. It's interesting. Oops. So this just avoids, by storing it here, it avoids a lookup. That's all we're achieving with that. So we can just say, oh, this needs to be data. This could be just render. Maybe I'll call it render data. I don't know about that name. Maybe I should call this something else. Maybe rendering data. And this could just be called data. Component is just this. So we actually could just say data.render. We have our source. So here we can say data render pointer to our texture. Do I work as a developer? I work doing my own thing. Whoops, this is just data source. And what is this? This is wait, isn't it? Oh yeah, this is the destination. Destination is, oh, you know what? I'm completely wrong with this. This source really should be called destination. And our source, yeah, that was wrong. Okay, texture rect is the destination. Yeah, okay. So it should be like this. Data render texture rect. And this should be destination. Okay. So that should do it. You seem like you really know what you're doing. Yeah, right. I mean, whenever I'm doing something I'm familiar with, obviously I know what I'm doing. But there's a lot of things that are new to me with this new design. Entity T is yeah, I'm doing a data-oriented design. I'm doing an entity component system rather than a component-based system. And so both of those are kind of, and also on top of that, I'm trying to learn modern C++, but also use, like, have a better understanding of my memory management and ownership of everything, and using raw pointers for that rather than just using smart pointers as a crutch. So yeah, learning a lot, but I did make this game called Kriya. Oh, and we should really be not copying that. I mean, really, we could just say that's constant data. It should not be copied. There's no reason to, there's no reason to modify it, mutate it, so we can make a mutable reference. Yeah, I think that's it. Hey, it's working. Cool. So we can create however many doors we want, and it's always going to be in front of the puddings. It is. Oh, they're sorting. That is a little weird. And I might need to think about that. That sometimes you'll see it changes the order of those. So I guess to fix that, what we should do is use the entity ID as well, right? So what we could do is say if A, let's just do the index, right? I think that works. The index. Yeah. So if the index is, oh wait, sorry. If the layer is the same, then we should prioritize it by the entity index. Oh, whoops. This should be b.entity index. So that way we prioritize those, like all the puddings will be in a consistent order because they have the same index. It's not necessarily what was created most recently, just whatever has the index. We could instead use the UID. Maybe that would make more sense. So then if we use the UID, if our generation is the higher bit, then that would mean that we would prefer the more recent, and I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, since our generation is the higher bit, then that means that we would be preferring the most recently, well, for the most part. It's kind of. Generally, we would be preferring the most recent, recently created entity. It is only 8 bits, so that means it wraps around. So whenever we do wrap, we go from like 255 to 0. Well, I guess, does that matter? Yeah, it would mean, oh, that's not true at all. Okay, that's right, because what we could do is have one thing that is sticking around for a long time, or the generation. I guess that's true. Like, because the generation is being tracked on a per index basis. Yeah, I think this is fine. Are you going to license Diggy Diggy Hole for the main theme music? No, I know that song though. I used to watch this streamer Shady Bunny who would play that song all the time. What's the benefit of using std : over using namespace std? Just keeping your things clean. And it makes it easier for you to know exactly what's coming from what. Like, let's say that you had your own vector class. Then you know that if you do std : vector, you know that you are using the std, the standard vector class, rather than your custom one. Or if you have your own sort function. Whereas if you do using namespace std, then you can cause ambiguous calls and classes, and yeah, so it just keeps it cleaner. You know, at least I like it. I know what is what exactly. Just reading the code, and I don't have to guess like, oh, is this my own vector class or is this the standard vector class? Because we might or might not be using namespace std, you know, up here or something. So it just keeps that information localized. Yeah, so let's see if this works. So what we just did there is made it so that it will keep things consistent. Whenever an entity is created, it will always be in the same order. We won't see things jumping around, which looks to be the case now. And then if we put a door, let's say we put a door here, and we put a bunch of puddings. So the reason it's doing this is because what we did is over in here in game, we said that the door prefab layer is 1. So we say that all doors are always placed in front of the puddings. And so that will be useful where whenever we're creating entities, we're like, oh, this belongs on the active layer, then we can just assign it at that point. And if we have a prefab, like oftentimes, like in Korea, I had a bunch of set layers, like an item layer, an active layer, a back layer, and I would have things like, oh, well, all of the items are always placed on the item layer. And all of the so an item would be like a treasure chest that you placed on the ground or table. And then you could have dropped items, and all of the dropped items would be on their own layer. And so any dropped thing would just be you know, on its own layer or whatever. And so that's this preset in the prefab. We typically wouldn't need to change it. So this is good. We have that working, sorting. I have no idea what our frame rate is, and maybe that's something that we should work on soon. Very soon. Because what I'd like to do coming up here, so this whole render system is a work in progress. A lot of this stuff is going to be a work in progress. We're going to be kind of just figuring out what's the best interface for things, and I need to do more research and plan some things, but a lot of it I think is just going to be feeling around. We're in the dark here. But yeah, so I got like this main event loop working, kind of like it's super rough, but something. Same with the rendering. And I would like to start working on a profiler before too long, because our profiler will be super useful for figuring out like what's taking up space. Basically, you know, if you look at the Unity profiler, something like that is very useful. I don't think we need something quite as feature heavy as what this is. I mean, it's super nice, but we don't need all of this. I have one for Korea. I guess I can pull it up here. My friend Ben Porter shared his profiler code with me years ago, and it like I made some modifications to it, but it gets the job done, and I bet I could write a much better one, and it'd probably only take like 2 or 3 hours to do at most. But it's still like super useful for just seeing where there are possible like spikes and what it might be. So here's what the profiler is. So what I would like to do, so you can see there's a bunch of text on it. So I think one of the first things we need to do is add in support for rendering text, so fonts. So what we might actually need to do is first pull in that, I think I saw, okay, maybe I was wrong. I thought I mentioned him say something about fonts, but I guess not. So, yeah. One of the things we need to do is add in support for rendering fonts. Yay, fun stuff. And then we need to, yeah, and then I could make a little profiler. I would like to add in some new features. So maybe we'll talk and think about that, like what I could do to make this a little nicer. But yeah, I could see it spending like a day or whatever trying to get this set up. And yeah, it would be nice to be able to like pause it, like pause the entire game through the profiler and be able to like look at one specific thing. Like it would be like I'm saving all of the data here, right? Because I have the entire graph. So if I could pause it, then I could hover over any specific line and it, could potentially tell me like, here's all the stats, Hey, on this specific frame, combat took 45 milliseconds, or sorry, not microseconds. These are microseconds. And hey, rendering light took 700 or whatever. And so like if there's a big spike, I can, pause it and look at that. That's something that this doesn't support, which honestly would have been really nice to have. Because usually you're like, oh, sometimes the game is spiking, what's going on? And then that happens, and what did I do? I would typically, this was really annoying actually, is that I would take a screenshot. I should have thought about this whole flow. I did it so infrequently that maybe it wasn't really worth optimizing because I added this stuff in later on. But I would take a screenshot and then I'd look, I'm like, what exactly is that thing that is like it's going really slow here? And then I would figure out the color, and then I wouldn't even know like how much time it actually took. I could just see like relative. I'm like, oh, that was obviously way bigger than what it typically is, so it spiked there, but how much time did it spend? I wouldn't have any like actual data to go with it. So maybe I could add in some more stuff for that. Maybe support for if it's paused, I can like hover over a system and it can give me more detailed information. Like I could have stuff logged within that where it's like, okay, well, here's the, like I kind of did that with the rendering where I have a bunch of things split up, and same with, I guess I kind of did that with like physics, where I have all of these different subsections. Yeah, I guess I kind of did that. I was going to say like, oh, if I really am wanting to look at like the physics collision stuff, I could do that. I could just look at that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what we need. But I think one thing we definitely need is to be able to render text. Yeah, because another feature we're going to want to add in, and I think I totally forgot to add this, is we want to have a command line. Some way to be able to do stuff. Like type in the game, like I don't know what, just some type of commands, some commands system. This is a engine tool. And Korea actually had support where I could like evaluate. There was certain commands like, oh, let my character like spawn this entity at this location. That's definitely useful. And then there's I had support to be able to evaluate Python code. And if I add in Lua support, then it would be cool to be able to execute Lua code. But yeah, that's, I don't know if we're going to do it right then, but we'll need to do that soon. So yeah, we're basically going to continue to explore rendering. There's much to do. I might work on an actual system. Oh yeah, one thing I was kind of wanting to do. It's okay. We'll do it another day. I was kind of thinking it'd be cool to add in a system like where the items would just bounce around. Maybe if I wanted to add in some basic like collision detection on them or something like that. I'm not sure. I would like to render text, like, before we even get the profiler running, one thing I could just do is have just the FPS in the corner or something like that, so I could see what the frame rate is. Yeah. But yeah, it would also be cool to kind of play around with collision stuff and start just like seeing how those systems are going to interact. For now, this works, this render system. I don't know how it's going to behave whenever we have 10,000 entities that have a render and a transform and we're iterating through all of them. Maybe it will be fine. Maybe, or maybe I need to actually store some data, like create some partial, spatial partitioning or something like that, where it kind of is tracking the entities. The thing about that is if we add in some spatial partitioning or more of caching any type of data about like the location, the spatial information, then that means that we have to keep that in sync with the transform. So anytime the transform changes, you know, our entity moves, then we need to update where it's at in the spatial partition. And that starts getting messy, and I don't know exactly how we would want to handle that. Because, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know what I would want to do for that, honestly. Oh, one thing I just remembered before I forget that I can do, which is a nice optimization, I think contains get no wait ECS contains bool has, yeah, so I completely messed this up. I checked to see if an entity has a particular component, but I realized that, you know what, we have here our entity bits, and so we can just get our entity and check to see if it has this particular bit, I think it's test, has TID set. And that's a much better way to do it. Because this is a vector lookup to a bit, whereas the other way, the pool, is actually doing a lookup for, that's Git, has. It's doing, it's looking in a hash map to see if you have, or if that entity exists. So yeah, this is much better. Oh, but this actually should be index. That's my bad. So instead of, it's like 01 versus, what's the, I think it's login, right? For the hash map lookup. So this is much better. So yeah, that's for checking to see if an entity contains a particular component. There's something I thought of earlier and I just now remembered. The hash map is 01? I don't think so. So I'm using an unordered map. Operator. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Complexity constant. Oh, so is that an 01? Maybe I was thinking of something. Maybe I'm thinking of insertion. Oh, it says linear in container size, so that'd be ON. Is worst case. May trigger rehash if an element is inserted. Right, constant is O1. Worst case is ON. Hash map is O cache miss. Yeah. Well, in this case, we're not necessarily iterating through all of the entity bits. But anyways, regardless. So yeah, maybe it lookup is 01 or something. But I think this is almost always going to be better, right? And also this makes sense that we look at the entity bits. Cool. So I think we made pretty good progress today. I mean, there's still a lot to do. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that for now. I think I'm gonna put the struct up here. Should I really leave? I don't know the like if I should leave this in here or if I should put this up out of here, or like if I should put in a anonymous namespace so that way it doesn't get exposed anywhere else or anything like that. I don't know. I'll look at that later. But yeah, it's cool. We have puddings and doors. Puddings and doors. Seems pretty good to me. Whee! So if we ever wanted to like change that ordering, I should be able to just do this. Oh wait, I guess I should do it this way. Yeah. Yep. Wee. Okay, cool. Alright, so I'm going to call it a stream there. I need to go to the store and then make some food for Easter dinner with family. My mom insisted that we did something. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time as usual. We're going to continue to work on this. Probably start with I think we might just pull in this STL GPU thing, which looks like I need to download it and compile it, set that up. I might do that off stream because it's not particularly interesting. If that's something you would like to see me do on stream, you should say so now. And then we'll probably pull that stuff in, use it for existing rendering stuff, and then start working on doing some fonts and whatnot. Thanks, TBD. Yeah, so I hope you guys have a good rest of your Easter Sunday, and I will see you around. Have a good one. Take care.